Hello ladies, welcome to Homemakers Radio. I'm Mrs. Sherman. I'm making these videos for my site, which I include a link in the description box. If you'd like to go over there and view this video and listen while you work, it's really what it's for, and there are a lot of more interesting things on there that you might be able to peruse. And I am here at the manse. Welcome to the manse, and I'm speaking from captivity. So hello all you captives out there. I was thinking about another captive in the Bible, and I wanted to express some of the observations that I've had about it. But first, I'd like you all to accept my challenge as homemakers to come out of the other side of this captivity, for want of a better word, better and happier and healthier and stronger. And I think a lot of people are going to regret just trying to wait it out, and maybe hoped that they would maybe use the time better. And so let's just start now. I've been in captivity since July and maybe a little bit in June. That's approximately 150 days, and been at home as much as I can, and pretty much put all the going out aside so that I could get some things done at home. I've always wanted to do that. You know, I've read stories and watched videos over the years of people who spent a year in the wilderness, or you know, went somewhere for a year, and always wanted to do it, but I wanted to stay home to see if I could stay home and do it. In this political time and this social time that we're in provided a perfect opportunity for me. I've tried it before, but there was always some reason. Somebody thought I was nuts and decided to get me out and get me somewhere. Now they can accept me being home because they think I'm doing it to avoid the social situations out there in the commercial world. So I've been home since July the 4th, and I'm starting to get better acquainted with my home, with my life, and going through some things that I never seemed to have time for, because it was always time to do something somewhere away from the home. And so I'd like for you to accept my challenge that I am taking up for myself, and that is taking time, using this time, so we'll come out of the other side of it better, better organized, better dressed, healthier, more orderly, smarter, stronger, more physically fit, more alert to the truth, more able to distinguish truth from error. This is really important, and to use our minds to have more knowledge, to increase in knowledge, in good knowledge. And I am a preacher's wife of nearly 50 years, and I have been a homeschooler. I homeschooled my children clear through high school. And so I'm a veteran homeschooler, and so what I'm saying to you is just the way I would have talked to my children, because homeschooling was a time of reasoning, and it was a time of discovery, and it was a time of developing talents. So I'm just going to talk to you the way that I would have talked to them while they were growing up, and see if it can help you get through your homemaker's day, or maybe provide an hour of time for you to listen to something while you get a room cleaned up. I try to speak long enough so you can get one room done or the kitchen done. I myself have got some interesting things that I like to listen to, and don't actually look at, but I like to listen. That's what this is for. So in order to get you started, I want to show you my teacup of the day, and it's the I forgot, it's by Roy Kirkham. It's an English piece of china, and I believe it's called Redoubt Rose or Redoubt Rose. And some of you have paintings on your walls of this particular artist. He kind of painted like a botanist, and there are books about him, so I wanted to show you that today. It kind of has the same shape of some of the Royal Albert china. It's by Roy Kirkham from England, and it came from Home Goods. And that was when I used to shop there before captivity. I used to think that I had really overindulged myself with the teacups and the fabric, but now I'm digging into it, and I'm using it and really appreciating having this shelves stocked with things that I would get because they were on sale, and it just looked like they needed a home. And so I'm very happy that I have those things. As a matter of fact, if you'd like to go and get dressed now, if you're not dressed, I just really want to encourage you to do something about it, because even if it's noon, even if it's past noon, try to redeem part of the day by getting dressed, because there's your start. There's where you need to get started. And one of the things I'd like to encourage you to do is to learn about skincare. You know, from the time I've been very young, like maybe 15 or 16, and my skin started to get oily and change, and I learned about using different kinds of products that were natural on my face to keep the to check the oil and to keep my face from breaking out. And you know, even if you're a homemaker, you still need to take care of your skin. And I have a friend that teaches skincare and sells she's with a company that sells a product, and she comes to see me every once in a while, and we talk about it, and it's really encouraging. And I think that it is very helpful to know something about skincare, about makeup, about hair care, and try to do it yourself. Because ladies, now that you're in captivity, you're going to have to learn to do things yourself. Learn to do your own hair. Learn to do your own nails. Be self-employed and self-controlled. You know, the Bible talks about self-controlled. We're supposed to be able to control ourselves, and you can learn to do that by learning to do things. That helps you to be self-controlled, and self-motivation is really what it is. So learn to take care of your skin, learn to do your own hair, your makeup, learn to sew. To come out of the other side of this period of social unrest better and smarter and more productive, and having increased your talents. If you've got a piano sitting over there, or a guitar or a fiddle, and you've never played because you just didn't have time, might be a good time to pick it up and learn. And there are many ways of learning. Now, I have mentioned online the idea of taking up an art course. You don't have to really know what to find, but just go on YouTube and type in the search engine how to paint a landscape, how to paint a rose, how to paint a flower, and you will and indicate what you want to use. You want to use watercolor, you want to use acrylics, or whatever. And so just go on one of those and then choose one of those videos and learn. See if you can learn step by step. You could just type in step by step art classes and learn what you want to have, what you want to find. And so I've discovered some things. I enjoy watching some of these because the teacher will want you to buy something like a pear, and they want you to paint a daisy, and it's so much fun to go outside and try to find something to paint for the lesson. And eventually, you know, if you learn to do some things, if you learn, you can teach somebody else. Even if you only know a little bit about it, you can teach something else. As a matter of fact, I had 4 of my grandchildren over one day, and the parents always are so relieved because they can go sit somewhere and have a cup of tea, and I've got the children, and we're doing something. And the children and I were at one of the tables, and they wanted to paint. So I brought out all the stuff and the canvases, and I didn't really have any plan as to how I would teach them. So what I had them do was take their little canvas and a pencil to their parents and ask them to draw the picture for them. And then they brought the picture back to the table, and I asked them what colors they wanted, and in their little palette I put the colors they wanted and just let them go to it. And we used acrylics, and they like that better. It's not so much water around, and didn't dilute everything. It wasn't runny, and they just painted. And I didn't really teach them anything. I just let them get used to the brushes and the colors and just the idea of it. And so that's good enough. And if you know some little thing, even if you know how to fix hair, that's something you can teach. You can pass on to someone else, and you can be, you know, I've talked before. By the way, you need to be going around and doing your housework now because there's nothing here to see. I will open some mail later on. I've talked before about how teaching, how you can learn some little thing and then pass it on or teach it, and how this valuable time, you look at this as valuable time to draw closer to God and to work on your character. And so God's given us this valuable time if you'll look at it like that. Many people are home that never intended to be home. Women are at home are now discovering that home is everything, the comfort of it, to making it into a place of comfort. I have turned my camera around so that you can see the other end of the house, which isn't as pretty or as interesting, but you can see down the hall to my bookshelf, and you see a couple of toys, a little wagon, and the little bear. I wanted to go back and tell you again about why I have toys in my house. It's not, quote, in case children come around. It's because I like them. They go with my house. They give the house a bit of a character and a soft look. And I like to represent all eras of life in my house, of babyhood, childhood, and adulthood. And so I have things that look like people of all ages would be things all people would be interested in. So that's why I have them, because I like them in their mind. It's got nothing to do with the children. The children appreciate it and love the toys I have around. I have lots of trucks and cars and dolls, but it's not just for them. It's for me. Even if children never come around, I'm going to have a toy or two because I think it balances out the look of the house. And I have seen pictures of, well, in the early days when they first started doing decorating pictures in magazines, you know, when the concept of home decor had come along, every now and then there'd be a decorator that would include a pair of old shoes on the floor, or something that would indicate someone had been there, you know, a childhood book that was open, or something like that. And so it just gives the home more humanness, in my opinion. So now I think that when we're talking about getting dressed, it's getting harder to make motivational sentences about getting dresses. I've done so many of these videos now, and I keep wondering, well, how can I say anything that's unique that would help understand the idea of getting dressed? And one thing I think that always helps is to become, in your mind, just become a teacher. How would you teach? Why would you teach someone else the reason? How would you teach them the reason that they should be getting dressed? Think of some ideas of how you would motivate someone else in the home, a woman in the home, to get dressed. And I believe that we should be all dressed up for home. As a matter of fact, we should look better in the home than anywhere else. One way that I got this idea was in a book that we read during homeschooling, and I think we just found it at we used to get a lot of our information from books from bookstores and other, or we would order things, but it was very hard to get as much as you can today on the web. It was very difficult, but I found this book called Princess, and it was about a princess in Saudi Arabia. And she had written, I guess for her American audience, a picture of what it was like to be a princess. And she said that although they had to wear coverings in public, that at home, and if they were with other ladies having tea, or relatives or friends in their home, that these coverings would come off, these dark coverings, dark veils would come off, and that these women exhibited the most gorgeous clothing that they had for the other women. And they had, you know, they had beautiful clothing, and they were dressed well, and they had beautiful hair and skincare, and they even had jewelry. But this was something that was hidden beneath these dark coverings when they went out. But at home, they looked better than ever. And what a great inspiration that was to me, that at home, like when we have our get-togethers at church or our ladies' classes, people have become so casual that you would never guess they were going somewhere really special. And they're so used to wearing uniform type things to work that when they come to the ladies' class or to any kind of get-together, a wedding celebration, or a shower, what we call baby showers and wedding showers, they don't dress up for it. And I remember the shock the first time I saw someone come in totally in, they had just finished some kind of a sports game, and they had all come in, these girls had all come in still dressed in their sports clothes from playing basketball, and came to a wedding shower held in someone's well-appointed home. And I remember how shocked I was. I was a young preacher's wife, and I didn't know we were allowed to do that. I always thought, oh, you get dressed up to go to things like that. And this woman had gone to so much trouble for the refreshments, and she'd had a special cake made, and she had just decorated it so beautiful, had all kinds of embellishments for the bride-to-be to put in her scrapbook, and the memories from the pictures and stuff. And here was this group of girls that came along, and they weren't even dressed up. They still had their basketball clothes on. And I still remember feeling that this was the start of something, because these girls had come from colleges, and this was the start of a new casualness. And after a while, I ceased being shocked and just was dismayed. And then after a while, I quit going, because I became the spectacle, because I wouldn't say dressed up, but I'm wearing what I'm wearing today, something like this. And people would say, why are you all dressed up? Well, I don't get dressed up for anything. And so I became more of a point of attention, decided to just skip it after a while. But as I said, God has given us this valuable time, perhaps to learn new habits. Why don't you get dressed up for your home? You know, those nice clothes in your closet are just going to hang there, and probably you won't get to go anywhere that warrants wearing them. Years ago, we quit going out to fancy places to eat, because we knew that I could learn to cook in such a way that I could imitate most of what I was going out to eat for. And I also knew that the money could be spent maybe on some good food, good products that I could prepare myself, and also it would give us more time at home, which is why we got home in the first place. And I'd like to welcome you to the manse. This is the preacher's home, and I've lived in preacher's homes over the years. And what I have done is tried to do the best I can with a home that was not my idea, but had to live in. And one day I will take you on a tour of this. So now that you are all dressed up for the home, you have to realize that you are self-employed and self-controlled. You have to be self-motivated the way the will of Christ teaches. Now, do you remember, I'm trying to think, there was a movie called The Ultimate Gift or The Ultimate Life. A lot of people have seen this. And it was about a man who had a will for his spoiled son, and he was a rich man, and his son thought that in the will he was going to get all kinds of riches and live an easy life. But the will said he had to earn the inheritance by going and doing a certain amount of this kind of work and that kind of work, and living without money and different things, and just put him to the test. Well, now, so you understand what a last will and testament is of someone by just understanding what happened in that movie and what this will was. Well, this, the Bible, is the last will and testament of our Lord Jesus Christ. The New Testament is the last will and testament of our Lord Christ. And so it indicates, if you read it, you can kind of get the whole picture that God wants us to be self-controlled. And that's the same thing as being self-motivated. So when you get up in the morning, it's your decision to dress well, to get ready, to make some kind of a list, some kind of a, I would say schedule, but I can't follow. Once I start putting the time on it and the time limits, then I start resisting it for some reason. So I follow a list, and I try to just stick to the list, and if it takes me longer than I expected, I just stubbornly go back to the list and follow it. And even as the darkness starts to invade the home from it being so late, I'll still stick with it. Also, weather is a problem, because if you get up in the morning and it's not one of those perfect days and the sun is just hiding behind the clouds, you might not be inspired to dress up. It doesn't make you very happy, does it? I would suggest you ignore. If you have a problem with mood being based on the weather, I would just ignore it and go by your list. So if it says to get dressed, also if you could possibly lay your clothes out the night before, the way we used to when we were little kids, you know, looked forward to the next day, and we'd lay our clothes out what we were going to wear the next day. I don't know if people are doing that anymore, but teach your children to do that. Teach them to lay out their clothing for the next day. It is a way of motivation and teaching them motivation and self-control. So when we want to move on now that you're all dressed up and you're ready to go. We want to move on to the home and care of the house. And when the tasks seem insurmountable, you're looking at everything. In fact, I'm looking, as I'm talking to you, I'm looking at my cluttered background, thinking of things that I could change. And it just all seems kind of insurmountable, like, how am I going to get this all done? Then what you have to do is prepare a workplace. Now, I realize I've got some letters to catch up on, some letter writing. I've got sewing that I'd like to finish. I've got an art project from an art class that I am catching up with. And I've got my homemaking to do. I've got to prepare a tea time for someone. And I also have to set time aside for preparation for getting ready for the day. And preparation would be, you know, your clothing and the way you dress. So how am I going to do that? Well, I would first clear a surface. Have a surface cleared for your work. Have your workplace cleared, and that's why I usually start with the kitchen. Although a lot of people don't like to start with the kitchen. I do, because if I don't start with the kitchen, it seems like I'm going to be bogged down in there forever. So, but preparing a surface, like if you want to cook, if you want to prepare food, you better have your kitchen cleaned up. And so if you have a clean workplace, and for letter writing, correspondence, I have a couple of little small desks, you know, for children, and I have another one that's more for like a secretary desk. But I prefer the dining table, so I clear off the dining table and get all my stuff out and lay it on that. I just prefer the dining table rather than a little office or a little corner, because it makes me feel more in touch with the rest of the house, and I can get up and out of it easily, and can leave it all there. It's a larger space. And I think it's also important to live at home as though everything you do is preparing you to be used by God in some way. Maybe you'll be called upon to teach something. Maybe you'll be called upon to care for. In the olden days, we used to know people who were caring for their sister's children or somebody else's children because of some circumstance, and that opportunity never came to me. But we can always live as though it might, and even though it might not, I think it's better to live towards the hope that God would use us in some way by what we learn, by our increased knowledge and our increased abilities at home. And I'm sure if you're a homemaker and you haven't been home all of your life, and your mother wasn't a homemaker, you're learning some things. Take all that learning, if you could possibly make note of it and write it down. It might help somebody in the future. It might help someone who's just beginning. I noticed that some of the homemaking books that I looked at in the 1980s, when people were writing more homemaking books, were not for beginners. They were for people that at least understood the semblance of homemaking. Maybe their mothers were homemakers or their grandmothers, and they kind of took to it. And so these books were rather heavy, and they were rather difficult, but they would have been understood by someone that was familiar with it. But we do need people to write books or stories or even newsletters about the beginner, for the beginner. And I noticed in taking care, I think it's also important to take care of yourself physically too. And I've mentioned several things about exercising. And one of the things that I had to realize is that you can't just go to an exercise video and start. You have to go to a beginner's exercise. And it's the same with homemaking. If you're not familiar with it, go somewhere to find out how to begin. And the beginners, I always say begin with your learning how to wash dishes. And I noticed there was a video the other day on YouTube that a girl was, I don't know what her circumstances were, but she said how to live without a dishwasher. And so she was teaching how to wash dishes. Now, in the olden days, we always had We heated our water and we had 2 pans of water. One was the soapy water, or there might have been 3 because we also rinsed the dishes first. So it'd be cold water. You'd rinse all the crud off your dishes. Then there'd be the hot water with the soap in it. And then there would be the clear, hot water for the rinse. We always had a rinse. And then there was the drainer that you would put the dish on so that the water would flow out of it. And I remember the first time I was teaching someone to wash dishes by hand in a class I had, and the girls, they caught on. They really loved it. They loved, getting into the water. But then when they got to the drain board, they were just leaving the bowls right side up, the cups right side up, and they didn't understand you had to turn them upside down because that drained the water out. That's why it's called a drain board. And so we always had the rinse water because that rinsed the soap off of it. And don't pay any attention to these bottles of detergent that say no rinse necessary. That's not true. You still will get, your dishes will taste like soap. Your utensils will taste like soap. And you probably, if you've grown up that way, you might think that's normal, but it's very bad for you. You need to rinse that. You need to rinse that. You can do better than that. And I've even known that there are dishwashers that don't have a rinse cycle because they believe that the soap, it's a special soap and it won't, cling to the dishes. But I would strongly suggest that you have a rinse cycle. And if you don't on your dishwasher, just wash again without the soap, and that creates a rinse for you. But always rinse your dishes. And now, so prepare your working place and live at home as though that you were practicing to be used in a special way by God. And even if you're not ever used in any dramatic, special way, learn to do the small things in a way that has meaning for you. That means carefully, artistically, with creativity, and with wisdom and with purpose. Do the small things the best you can. Also, I think it's really important as far as homemaking is concerned, is to live as though time was on your side. One of the worst experiences I have is when I am trying to play catch up and I'm rushing through something. It gives me tension, it gives me a backache, I cannot stand it. But when I start to slow down and I'm thinking, I'm never going to get through this job, and I start to slow down and just say, well, I'm just going to take my time. I'll put on something to listen to, put on a movie. I start sorting my papers or folding the laundry, or even sewing, catching up on little things, sewing the buttons on, doing the mending. Those things are not really interesting, but when I decide I'm going to take my time and not rush through them, I do a better job and get a lot more done. Because when you're running through something, when you're rushing through something, you're using up a lot of energy and you're not breathing properly. Now, I talked to you about exercise, and I wanted to mention that before. And one of the things that you have to watch about exercise is the way that you do it. And that's why I listen to the instructors when I'm on an exercise video series, and I'll listen to the instructors and what they say. And I won't put any links to ones I watch, ones I do, because you're going to find something wrong with her. You're going to find out she has something in the background in her house that you don't like, or she's going to be promoting in some other video some philosophy that I don't even like. But what I'm looking for is how to do these exercises from a really good teacher, and try not to absorb the other things that I don't agree with. But one of the things that I in my ladies' Bible class that I have here every week, I was trying to get them interested in, my challenge of being more physically fit at the other side of this captivity, and telling them how just sitting where they were, they could raise their arms, turn their neck, stretch and that sort of thing. But I had to caution them about something, and I've learned this, and I want to pass this on to you. You can't just have an exercise where you're just rotating your arms or your shoulders or moving your feet and expect that you are doing exercises. You have to stiffen up the core of your body, and you have to also tighten up your arms when you're exercising your arms. This is the reason that people are not able to be fit and to feel better after they exercise, is they're just moving these loose limbs around, and it absolutely has no effect. It's just wearing you out and might even make you become rather disjointed. So pay attention to what the instructors say about the exercise. Most of them are now physical therapists, and they know how the body works. But generally, you tighten the core of your body, and when you're working out, and you learn a lot about how effective these exercises are. Also, by the way you breathe, and they will teach you that too. So now if you have trouble beginning with homemaking, I usually try to have 3 sections here, and that's your preparation, which would be getting ready, and then your homemaking, and then we talk a little bit about other things like life and people and getting along with others, and how to improve your how to refine yourself and improve your conversation habits, etc. And so I want to talk a little bit about the homemaking. And so if you're having a hard time getting a grip on your time, you just can't seem to get started at anything, I would suggest doing one of the sit-down stretch exercises, because it can clear your mind. I was thinking today how important it is to not do the same thing all the time. They say if you get stuck and you find that your physical fitness is not improving, and there's no change at all, you don't feel there's any change of your exercises, to change them around. Do different ones at different times during the day, and don't do the same thing all the time. And I was thinking how that also applies to us spiritually. You know, there are some people that are just stuck on one kind of spiritual subject, or they'll get stuck on one kind of scripture only, and that's let's say end times or prophecy, and they just run that over and over again, and they don't ever grow. They don't ever learn to be self-controlled. They never learn creativity, and they never learn about character, and they really never learn the joy of life, because they're stuck on this particular subject, and it can be anything. But mainly I've noticed it about the end times people, and the people that are waiting for the big crash, and the people that are talking about being martyrs all the time, is that they get stuck and they don't ever grow spiritually. They don't really learn how to develop a skill of homemaking. Women especially need to be careful of this, not to get stuck on any one thing. It's the same with exercise. You can't get stuck on one kind and just do the same thing each time, because you'll find you might lose a pound or 2 and then get stuck. You can't seem to shake the rest. And so all of the instructors indicate that you can have a change. You can improve by changing it around. So with scripture and with Bible knowledge, you have to know more than just your favorite subject. And that's why I object to people who constantly say the only thing that women can teach other women is Titus 2, and they can only teach other women. And they obviously have never been a homeschooler, because if you're a homeschooler, there's a subject matter you can teach in just about everything, even that little lime that I showed you the other day. And I do have something new to show you next time. There is so much that you can teach, and you have to learn about everything. Learn Philippians 4:8, thinking on how to thinking on things that are lovely, pure, and good, and not always thinking about scary things. And learn things on character. Add to your faith virtue, and to your virtue knowledge, and to knowledge self-control. Take those and do a big study on each of those words. And so you can, if you have trouble getting started or getting a grip on your time, do a 5-minute chair exercise. You can find that somewhere. And if you're having trouble you've got a nice list, but you're having trouble getting a grip on your responsibilities, then I would say that's the time to follow your list. And then also make appointments. Make appointments. Okay, if you're having trouble getting started, make appointments. Like today, I made an appointment with myself to go on a short walk. That's my time. That's my nature walk. I'm going to see what I can find to go on a short walk. And I actually found a rock that was shaped like a heart. I brought that in. And I found a feather and a couple of other things. These are the things that the original Victoria magazine used to take pictures of an old dish with a feather in it and a rock and something else, and just these little things of nature. And the other thing is to make an appointment to order something for yourself. Order some small thing so that you've got something coming to your door or coming in your mail. And the other thing I wanted to mention about exercise, if you do exercises, and that there are a lot of ladies that are doing the walking in place exercises in your home, so that you do so many, you can walk a mile in your home and they just walk in place. Be very careful not to hit the floor hard with your feet, because those little bones in your feet are so delicate. So just barely touch the floor and tread lightly. Just be very careful. And don't thud so hard that you harm yourself. So make appointments for yourself to walk or to do exercise. Make an appointment for yourself to order something, and make an appointment maybe to write to someone. And so if you have trouble getting started and getting a grip on your time and getting control of your responsibilities, make an appointment to do something. Make an appointment to arrange some flowers. Make an appointment with yourself to arrange some flowers. Now, I have a box about so big with artificial flowers in them, and so I just get those out every now and then and try to do them in a different way. I don't cut them because I want to be able to use them for other things. So that might be something you would like to do, or make an appointment to do something like write a letter or paint a picture or clean a closet. Make an appointment for it. Say, I've got to, just as long as you would sit in an office. Let's say you make an appointment with your insurance agent and you've got to go sit in an office and wait your turn. Why couldn't you just do that for a closet? Just going to clean a closet out, so it's going to take you an hour to clean the closet out, just like you would when you were sitting in a waiting room. Look how much more you can get done at home when you make appointments with yourself. You could probably think of some creative appointments. Make an appointment to read the newest Victoria or Tea Time magazine that came in the mail, and just make an appointment to sit down and do it. At home, if you're used to living at home, you can kind of realize there's so much work and so much to be done that you don't make appointments to sit down and do something quiet. And so live as though time was on your side. And we know it's not on our side, but live as though it were. You might find you get a lot more done. Now, I want to get into homeschooling. And one of the regrets that people have is the lack of challenge, because we believe that there's no more pioneering to be done. There's no last frontier to explore. We can't go find a new land, and we can't build a new civilization. But there are so many things to pioneer. And as you become more familiar with your home, you're going to discover things that need to be invented or created or pioneered. And you can do that in your home. You need to discover there needs to be people that pioneer how to hairstyle your own hair. There needs to be all kinds of things on how to dress for the home, and there are a lot of people are doing a very good job on that. I've seen some of them. There's pioneering how to sew and how to sew your own clothes. Or one of the challenges I'd like to see someone take up as pioneer is how to not sew clothes, but how to wrap fabric in such a way around you and tuck or pin, so that you can take a swath of fabric and make an instant garment out of it without sewing. I find that quite fascinating. And but there are all kinds of things. Pioneering how to pack a tea box package for someone and mail it or deliver it. There are so many things that you can become a pioneer, and you can find it by maybe overcoming a problem in your own home, like the problem of getting started, getting ideas, or there are just many techniques that are waiting to be discovered. I don't believe God took away all of our frontier and pioneer opportunities at all. I think that there's going to be great challenges in the future. And one of them, of course, that we're enduring right now is the idea that people are more isolated than usual. But many of us are used to isolation because we grew up in the home. Our mothers were homemakers, and we're homemakers, and we realize it's a do-it-yourself job. It's an isolating job. It's a self-employed job, and you have to learn to be self-employed. And so it's isolating because you can't have a group around you doing this. It's just so individual, and it's very distracting if there's someone that says, can I come over and help, because they don't do things the way you do it. And while it might be welcome, it's never, probably never the way that you wanted to do it. And so there's a challenge right there, is how to be self-employed in the home. And these are pioneering. There's room for pioneering in everything. And every generation has to learn it all over again anyway. So pioneer something in the home. That's just a challenge for you. Now, if I want to talk a little bit about homeschooling and children, if you've got children at home, and we're going through this political upheaval all over the world, I would suggest strongly that you not let the children endure the stress. Just make your home into a cocoon and make some plans and make some appointments and for the children. And like last year, during the summer, I suggested, they're not going to go to their summer camps. Why don't you do summer camp on your own property, in your own home, in your own backyard? Different things that they would have done in summer camp. You can do it in the house. You don't even need the internet. You just need your own plans, your own crafts, your own foods, your own songs, your own everything. And you can have your own. Of course, I grew up on a homestead in Alaska. We did all this stuff anyway. Most families had their own things that they did, but they can have their summer camp at home, and they can camp out somewhere in the house, camp out in the living room or anywhere else, and just do things differently. And they can have all of their recreation, all of their creativity, everything. And you can plan things for these children so that they do not realize that there's anything unusual going on. And I think that's really, really important, because even if you don't have children, why don't you just do it for yourself? Why don't you just have a little holiday at home for yourself and not talk about or even think about any of the things that are going on? So homeschool, if you are homeschooling, and of course I'm homeschooling you, so I get to boss you a little bit. So even if you're a grandmother or great-grandmother, I will just teach you right now, since we are homeschooling, there will be no TV and there will be no news. So I do watch a few things that I like that are very encouraging, that do include some of the happenings nationwide or worldwide. But for the most part, what we're going to get the most out of is what we do with our lives here at home. So if you're going to be homeschooled, then you cannot have television, and you cannot have it running all the time. And if someone in your family is running it all the time, then you're welcome to go to a different room and listen to something else that's more edifying. And so there'll be no TV and no constant media news. And that's really important, because you've got to be able to fill your head with whatever's good. And so I wanted to also mention that when you become a homemaker, this is now, not everybody is the same, and not everyone's going to experience this. But when you decide to be a dedicated homemaker, and you're going to learn as much about it as you can, and you're going to really try to be good at it, and create a home where your family has a lot of comfort and stability, then and you've been generally accepted in life by everybody before this, then all of a sudden people kind of turn against you. They don't want to talk to you anymore. They don't want you in their life anymore. They won't phone you. They don't want to come over. Nothing, because you have made your home your life, and they don't believe that way. And before that, no one ever said anything. But then when you start to live your life in a way as to manifest a belief and a dedication, then you become a target of criticism and even gossip and smearing. And these are people that are looking for a cause, looking for an occasion to find fault. And I have often been told this is a falsehood too. Modern psychology is just terrible. But even back in the 70s, when someone was criticized, they would be very hurt, and they would say, this person is criticizing me, and somebody's always trying to argue with me. And someone would say, well, dear, it must be your fault. You must have done something wrong to stir them up. But that's not necessarily true, because you see the example over and over in the Bible, both Old and New Testament, that people of God that decided to live the life they believed, where people would lay in wait for them. They were ready to attack them. Look what happened to Christ. Look what happened to the followers of Christ. They attack through criticism, and then there's gossip, and then there's smearing. Now, smearing is where they have said things about you that other people start to believe, and they will, and you walk around thinking, why isn't anybody talking to me? Well, you've been smeared, and you didn't know it. And so they were looking for a cause, and it was nothing. It was because you're good, or because you are living that lovely, free life of the home, and you're starting to thrive, and you're enjoying it, and you're happier. And some people are just not happy about that. Now, it's very nice if this never happened to you, but in my era, it did. And even though people admire the 1950s housewife, that started way back then, because I can remember hearing housewives complaining that people were being very rude to them about them staying home. And so this is just part of the territory. However, now that the state has made so many people stay home through loss of employment, they kind of shot themselves in the foot, because who's going to be criticizing the homemaker now? So don't waste any brain space trying to figure out why these people have criticized you or been rude to you. Don't even waste any brain space. They don't really think too deeply about what they're doing, and they don't really have a good reason. You can't really reason with them. And I believe it was it Thomas Jefferson that said something like, trying to reason with someone who has no reason, who has given up reason, is like trying to administer medicine to a dead person. You just don't want to reason with them. And of course, we're Christians. We don't want bad feelings to exist between us and others, and we like to straighten things out. But some of these people don't want to straighten anything out. They enjoy making you feel tortured. They enjoy leaving a criticism on you and it hurting you and you being unhappy. They enjoy that. So when I was growing up, we were taught, you don't ever call anyone insane. You never say you're insane or you're crazy. And it became sort of a little automatic byword, oh, you're crazy. It just became kind of a joke. But I never did develop the habit. My parents never called anyone insane or crazy, and there probably were some people that were questionable and deserved it, but they never did. And we were not allowed to call anyone insane. That is a terrible thing. That's like calling somebody, it's like the New Testament warned about calling someone a fool. And you call someone insane, then the very thing that you called them could actually come upon you. And that sounds really, really strange. But most of the time, when people are calling you insane, they are suffering from some kind of conflict in their mind about what to believe, and they're halting between two beliefs and two opinions, and they can't make up their mind. And then they see someone like you who's dedicated to the home and who's got her mind well grounded and on things that on purpose, that are on. She has her life of purpose, and she's going in that direction. That upsets them. They want you to be as confused and conflicted as they are, so they will call you insane. Don't ever take it too seriously. And I do know several women who got tired of being called insane and decided to go to some kind of a therapist and get a test. This was before the internet. You can now get a test to find out if you have a sound mind, and you'd probably pass it, but you have to make sure what kind of test it is. There's a lot of humanism in some of those things. But she went to a therapist and said, my family says that I'm insane, and I want to make sure, and it's causing me, not to be able to function very well, just worried about it. I don't want to lose my mind. So these people would give her a test, and she brought home certificates. She brought home paper that were signed by these so-called professionals that said she was of sound mind. And she hung these certificates in her house, and it shut the family up. So now to talk about our conversation. We have freedom in our home, and we have freedom with our own schedule, and we have freedom that we can schedule our life around the needs of people around us. And if you're living alone, of course, you've got even more opportunity to do things you really love and to live out some of your dreams. And it's better if you do have people in your life, but if you don't, there are ways to keep very busy. And one of the things that we can do is improve our character. The Bible talks about character. And I'm sure many of you that have grown up in public schools never heard the word because it was not taught. I saw such a difference in homeschooling and public schooling when I began homeschooling my children and comparing it to my own schooling, because we had some inadequate books for homeschooling in the early days because it hadn't really gotten well developed, and but we had a few things. We had art literature readers and McGuffey readers, and they were written in an old-fashioned way for people of the 1800s. Didn't quite apply, but there was an underlying character message throughout there that I finally picked up and realized what it was, and I was able to take from that and learn something about character. And then I went to the Bible and learned about character, what the different qualities of character were in the Bible. And so we can develop our character even if we're living alone. And one of the things we can do is guard our thoughts and because our thoughts will determine our conversation and our remarks. And stay away from the constant gloom and doom and giving up and failure talk. Just get it out of your life. Just get rid of those remarks that just kind of put everything down. I'm trying to think of one right now that I hear sometimes, and that is, well, I'll believe it when I see it. Or, well, it's not going to turn out. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing good's going to happen. It never happens. Nobody ever does anything. That's just defeating, and that defeats people who are sensitive to gloom and doom talk. There are some people that are real sensitive. It's like kryptonite to them. If you start talking gloom and doom, they just shrivel up and they just want to leave. And in a sense, we all are repulsed by it, by the gloom and doom talk. And as I said before, see if you can sit in a conversation and not mention the war. That comes from Basil Fawlty in Fawlty Towers, and we had a restaurant, and he was serving, and there were some guests that came in that had been through the war. I guess it was World War II. And so he told all his staff, when you serve those people, don't mention the war. But then he had said it so much, and it was so much on his mind, that that's all he did when he was around them was talk about the war. By the end of their meal, they were all weeping and from the terrible memories. And so see if you can get through a social conversation, or even passing by people or saying hi to people, or this little small talk without mentioning the war. And I think that's really important too if you've got little children around. And what I mean by the war is the current political situation and the current so-called health situation. You don't need to mention that. And I'm happy to say that the last visitors that I had, see, I'm supposed to be in captivity, and I get all these visitors because I figure they're trying to visit those in captivity the way the Bible teaches. So they come and see me. But We have sat around and had tea and talked about all kinds of wonderful things, and no one ever mentions the war. And it's just kind of a test to myself to see if I can keep them on track of good things, because it's not good for you. It's not good for your heart. It's not good for your nerves. It's not good for your adrenaline, to mention, quote, the war. So guard your conversation. Guard your remarks. And you know, really, we are equipped, I believe, we're equipped by God to thrive. We are equipped to thrive and succeed, not to be defeated. We weren't created for that kind of defeat. We're created for success, I do believe. I just wouldn't want to undo all. Who would clean up their kitchen and then just go and throw everything around and deliberately mess it up again? That's defeating, isn't it? Well, that's what we do when we're talking the down talk, the gloom and doom talk. We're supposed to be successful and not defeated. So one thing that I have been watching that that I wanted to, I like to tell you what I've been looking at on the web, or what I've been reading, or what I've been watching. And one thing that I have been watching is life in Appalachia. And I don't know what attracted me to that, but my father was from Texas, and I believe he was not born there. And his people came out of Alabama and then Missouri, and they just, originally the family was from Northern Ireland, and kind of worked their way from Pennsylvania on through to the west, and over the generations. And one thing that I had seen my father do several times, once was on the homestead, and another place was Tasmania, Australia, when we moved there in 1967. And this is what he did in both places, and being the oldest child, I was able to follow him around and kind of observe some of the things he did. He did something called forest planting. And this is where all he did was throw seeds from, like the seeded potatoes, or seeds from the inside of something, and just throw them on the forest floor and kind of cover them up and everything, and then go later and harvest them. And he had all kinds of things growing in the forest. When we moved to Tasmania, there was a little grove of trees next to where we lived, and he could be seen over there with a hoe, and he was putting in the potatoes. And one time, someone that was living in the area had been walking around and noticed him in there, and he went and he said, "Joe, what are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm just planting a few things." So he had known this probably from a youth, but he read a lot too, and there was probably books about it. And so he had been practicing, I don't know what it's called, forest floor harvesting or something. And it's interesting because when I went back to the homestead, all these strawberries were in the forest. They were under trees. They were in the little area where the tree had a little root, and there was a little hole there, and there'd be strawberries growing all over the forest. And they weren't harvested. They weren't taken care of. And you didn't have to, when he did this, you didn't have to weed it. You didn't have to add anything to it. And so he had been planting all kinds of things in the forest. So I just happened to go back to look for things about Appalachia, and there was a family that was doing this forest harvesting and forest planting, and I thought that was so interesting. I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but that's one of the things that I have been looking up, and I always like to tell you some of the things that I have been watching that I find interesting. And another thing that I'm finding really interesting is someone who has a special program where he can detect what airplanes, even the military ones, and even cargo airplanes, and even airplanes that land on carriers, where they are in the United States, in Northern America, and in the Caribbean. And he's got all these things identified, and he used to be in the military, and he knows, and he'll tell you where they're going, where they came from, and when they went. So he's tracking all these airplanes. I don't know why I find that fascinating. Maybe it's because I've been in captivity for so long. And so today I'm going to show you what I got in the mail. And I want to give you a little hint about mail. If you've got old envelopes that have the part that has to be moistened in order to, I like the ones that has a tear-off strip, and I've gone to those. You don't want to be licking that. When we were children, we were taught to lick it, but it wasn't very nice. Is to take a paintbrush, keep a paintbrush and a little bit of water in a dish, and just paint this. When you get your letter, when you get it stuffed with your letter, paint this part here with water, and then just do this and maybe set it under a book or something so it will mash down really good and stick. It isn't really very good. It isn't really very sticky stuff. And so I wanted to tell you that, so you can use up those old envelopes. And then we're going to, I got a newsletter, and it's from Amy, and she's the one that does these really pretty lettering, and she takes it and puts it in sections and does all this lettering. And today, her subject is the heart, is the care of the heart, and she has both the spiritual and the physical in here on how to care for the heart. I will put a picture of that on there for you. She's on my sidebar, and I believe the name of her blog is On the Journey. So I want to take a picture of this and put it on for you. I don't have a scanner, so I can't scan it in. And then I have another letter here. So I'm going to open that because it had stuff in it. And so here's a little handmade hand embossed card, you know, from one of those Cricut machines. Isn't that cute? And then she's given me 2 tea bags. I've got to tell you about this one. It's called A Bag of Our After Dinner Mints Herbal Tea. That's the name of it. A Bag of Our After Dinner Mints. I mean, it's not called After Dinner Mint. It's called A Bag of Our After Dinner Mints Herbal Tea. So I haven't opened it yet, but I will use this. And then by Clipper is the name of the company. There's no other information. And this is called A Bag of Our Strawberry Fields Herbal Tea, or Herbal Tea. So I'll be looking forward to trying that. Now that's something, she's managed to put this in an envelope without extra postage. So that was quite a trick. 2 of these and her little card with the extra stuff on it was 1 stamp. So it's really nice if you have a little postal weighing machine. It'd be worth it to get it so that you know whether you've gone over the weight for 1 stamp. That's a great idea. Okay, so now I have another envelope, and it's from my granddaughter. And it gets here with my name on it, and so she has made me one of those cards she taught me how to make, right there. And then on the inside, she's drawn another fashion. She's my fashion designer. She's always drawing a fashion design for me, and she's written me a letter, and she's told me about her Valentine's party and all the food that's going to be in it. She has a list. She's listed all the food, and then on the table, what the decorations are going to be on the table, and then what she's going to wear. She's made another fashion design there. What she's going to wear, and talking about the next appointment. She's made an appointment with me for another class where she's going to teach me how to make another type of card. So that's nice. And so I've got a lot of stuff to look forward to. So I hope that you will, don't look for people to make appointments to teach you. If you can't find anybody, you make appointments to teach somebody something. Just get something out of a book and read it, or just tell something that's valuable to someone else. I want to wind this up by reading you a poem. I'll try to get it on the post as well. And that's one of the reasons I want you to go and listen to this on my post, because I will have other things. And remember, I had talked to you some time ago in one of these videos about influence and about things that we say and you do, and how far it goes and the influence. Just like when I talk about appearance, I talk about your influence. And before captivity, when many of us went out a lot more, I said, look, your appearance has an influence on people. They'll look at you and say, well, you know, she's dressing like that. Maybe I could dress like that too. Maybe I don't have to dress like this. Maybe I can dress up a little bit. So I want to read this poem to you called The Pebble in the Water. And I have described this several times and never had found it. But the other day I was going through a box of old papers and found it. And this is what it says. Remember, I told you it's like dropping a pebble, dropping a rock in the water, and the rings of water go all the way until they reach the shore. They start in the middle and they reach the shore, and they touch every area of the shore. And that was like your influence. It touches even a tiny bit of influence. So here it is. And this is something you need to teach your children, and especially your teen children, because it talks about careless words. It talks about, it's like I had spoken to you before about telling people they're insane, or that they're crazy, or that their values are all messed up, or, you know, people that like to argue all the time and saying insulting things. Your children should be taught regularly from an early age not to be insulting, not to say insulting things to their parents. And even when they become older and they think they're equal with their parents, it's still not grown up. They'll say, well, I'm all grown up, I can say what I want. It's not grown up to insult someone or to call them insane. It's not grown up to stage a blow up. That's not grown. Just because you're grown up doesn't mean that's not proof of being grown up. That's childish. That's the kind of stuff that we teach toddlers not to do. So, drop a pebble in the water, just a splash and it's gone, but there's 100 ripples circling on and on and on, spreading from the center, flowing out to sea, and there is no way of telling where the end is going to be. Drop a pebble in the water, in a minute you will forget, but there's little waves of flowing, and there's ripples circling yet. And those little waves of flowing, a great big wave, have grown. You've disturbed a mighty river just by dropping in a stone. Drop an unkind or careless word. In a minute it is gone. But there's 100 ripples circling on and on and on. They keep spreading from the center as they go, and there is no way to stop them once you've started the flow. Drop an unkind or careless word. In a minute you forget, but there's a little wave of flowing, and there's ripples circling yet. And perhaps in some sad heart a mighty wave of tears you've stirred, and disturbed a life that was happy when you dropped that unkind word. Drop a word of cheer and kindness, just a flash and it is gone, but there is 100 ripples circling on and on and on, bearing hope and joy and comfort on each slashing, dashing wave, till you wouldn't believe the volume of the one kind word you gave. Drop a word of cheer and kindness, in a minute you'll forget, but there's gladness still a swelling, and there's joy a circling yet, and you've rolled a wave of comfort. I think there was probably a little more on that, but it got cut off from printing or something. So I can remember seeing people that were spreading something about someone else, and then the other person wasn't aware of it, and they would wonder what was going on, but felt that something was going on, and people would say, oh no, you're just paranoid, you're just crazy. And so always trust your best instincts, and don't ever, people that are busy putting you down are just people that don't have enough of their own goals to work, and they want to make sure that you don't get ahead of them. So keep busy and keep taking care of your home, and hope you got a lot done while you were listening, and maybe tomorrow my house will look a little bit better too. And so our evening is coming on quickly here. It's getting a little bit dark, and I want to say goodbye to all of you, and I hope to see you. I'd like to come here more often, but my house is just really demanding, and I've got a couple of things that I'm still working on that I can't seem to get back here, and I'd like to come and talk more often so that you'll have something to listen to in the day. But if not, you can click continuous play and go back to some of my older lessons. So I'll talk to you later, and I love you. Bye.